Hello everybody, thank you for coming back to the channel and welcome to this new chapter in which I want to build the Antonov tailplane. Now one might think it's a tailplane, right? What can be difficult about it? But I'm finding particular challenges, let's say. First thing, I wanted to do the spar and I couldn't find the spar on the plan, so I kind of decided that this is where the spar is drawn out. It's this kind of the front view of the plane and this is probably the spar, so I'm taking that as a model. If we look at the design, it's made actually of two pieces. I'm actually used to making one single piece for the tailplane. It makes sure that it's somehow in line with itself, which is good, but this one actually is not built like this, like that. We have here like two, what I'm going to take as skewers or dowels that actually then join the tailplane through the fuselage and stick it on. So that's it's a bit of a new for me, which is good. Now the challenge, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, the challenge with these ribs, and it's also going to be on the wings, is that they're not flat at the bottom. A lot of the kits, like the Guillo's kits and things like that, they have a flat bottom of the rib, which makes it easier to build. These aren't. These are more realistic. They're more scale. But the question is then, how do you actually put it? How do you make sure that you keep in the right angle of incidence, right? So that's a bit of the challenge. What I've done so far, I'm building everything twice, at least for each side. So I've built or cut out of, I think it's 2.5mm wood, what is going to be the spars. So that's one spar going to be here, the other spar is going to be there. And I've also started to build the root rib. I've cut it out of 6mm or 1/4 inch balsa, because then what I understand here is then it has to be somehow carved to shape to fitting the wing, which is also going to be an interesting activity. But I've gone with the 6mm because it's the maximum width that I could measure. And then the next step is going to be to build up the leading edge, but I have to leave here a gap, so I probably have to put in a gap. I think it's like 4mm underneath that keeps the gap, let's say, standing above the plan. And the tailplane I think is going to be easier, because even if it's by the design it's not completely flat, I'm probably going to make it completely flat and then sand it to shape that it somehow follows along with the ribs. So what I'm going to do now I have the two, let's say, root ribs. It's tailplane root ribs. One is better than another, so I'll take the better one and I'll start to cut out also the ribs. It's quite a lot of ribs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full ones and a small one, so that's 7 times 2, so 14 ribs. I'll do this 1mm because I think it's enough ribs, and 1mm I think is going to be enough and not to add too much weight. And then I also have to then build in or cut out the tailplane ribs, so quite a lot. And once all of that is built and carved and nicely, then I have to separate the elevators, because then it's the elevators will cut across right behind the spar. So that's going to be another challenge, especially then also to connect them, because on this plan it's not actually designed for that. But what I do want to have, if I want to have a radio control, I want to have the two elevators connected, so I'll probably do it either with a dowel or a wire. I have to figure it out. So quite a lot of thinking, which is good, and a lot of cutting, which is also good, and then building, which is also good. So it's a fun little chapter, not so small, but for sure it's going to keep me entertained for a couple of days, I hope. 24 pieces. That's the number of pieces that I've carved out of balsa. Let me show you. So it's just the rough carve. I still have to sand them, but I'll probably do them after the assembly. So these are the trailing edges. You can see here I've done it out of 2.5mm. The spars for the tailplanes, that's also 2.5mm. The leading edges I've made 6mm, that's 1/4 inch, and I still need to find a way. I probably had to put 2mm underneath because it had to stand up. Then the root ribs, which are I think also 6mm, I'll have to carve them, and the wingtip or tailplane tip, which is 2mm thick, somehow from the stock that I have. And then I believe it's 14 1mm ribs that I have here. I've lined them up through the gap that I have for the spars, and that will be 7 on each side. The last one will be trimmed. So, but I put them together so that I could sand them kind of to the same shape. Now the next step is to split up. I'll probably put one completely aside. I'll do one at a time. I think I'm going to start with this one. But I mustn't forget, because I might forget, is that I still need to put in 2 dowels or 2 maybe skewers or something from maybe bamboo or whatever from what I find in the kitchen. So for that I also need to make some holes into some of the ribs, and then start to assemble and basically step by step make the notches. So in the past what I did do was draw the notches on and do them all directly, but then I found that it doesn't always fit. So I'm not sure what to take as a master. Maybe I would take the spar as a master, make the notches on that, settle the the ribs onto the, let's see if I don't break it now, put the rib into, I'm afraid of breaking it, I'm not going to push it in, put the rib onto the spar, sorry, the spar, I couldn't get the word, and then based on that then also make the notches on the tail part, on the trailing edge, and also the leading edge. I'm a little bit tired after so much cutting and I want to go to bed, so this is going to be work for tomorrow, but some progress, which is always good. So here's the progress with the right tail plane. I've got all the pieces together, so the 2 skewers that then will hold it to the other one, and then all the other pieces are all kind of assembled. Let's see if it doesn't fall apart. There, it holds itself, but there's no glue on it, and it hasn't been shaped yet. That's going to be then the last phase. So I've got the pieces. They're not completely parallel, the ribs, unfortunately. The tip actually I had to modify it as I thought needed, and I did shorten down the last rib here on the tip, but I think it kind of fits. So what I'm going to do now, I think my approach is going to be, I'm going to use this piece of wood, I'm going to put it underneath, and I'm going to use the leading edge as a base, and build up from that. So basically maybe I'll also fix the spar and then use the leading edge and the main spar to build up gradually. So I have to pin it down, put some things to block it, and like that I hope to get also the right incidence. And then once that is done, then and it's all set, then I'll be able to sand it down. So quite relaxing, a little bit frustrating sometimes, but quite relaxing putting all the wood together, and actually interesting that it holds together even without the glue. And of course it wouldn't hold very long. Let's see, if I shake it, it'll fall apart. No, it doesn't. No, that's disappointing me. Come on, fall apart. Okay, it doesn't fall apart. That means it's well done, kind of. So I start to glue it step by step. It's going to be a longish process because I have to wait for the glue to set. So I've just overcome my first boo-boo on the project, which is not very much in. First I put in the leading edge, and I was putting it directly onto the plan, and then I realized that somehow it wasn't working because I've got the leading edge, which is kind of in line. I still have to cover it, but it's in line with the top of the ribs, but the trailing edge was too far down, right? So it wasn't gluing actually properly. So I cut it, I unglued it basically, I took it off, I put then this 1mm sheet under the plastic so that I don't damage it, and let's see if I can now actually take it off, take the whole construction off, and like that the leading edge is also a little bit elevated from that perspective. I think that's how I can call it, elevated. And now if I take it off, so basically the spar is stuck to at the same level as the working board. Leading edge is up like 2mm or something like that, and the trailing edge 1mm. So as you can see, I'm using a lot of pins here to keep it all in place, and let's see if I can pull it up, and let's see what it looks like once I pull it up. Let's see. So here is the right tail plane. I'm just going to make sure that this is somehow in line, these holes, yeah, more or less in line, and there it is, right? So let's see if we can see it well. So leading edge will have to be sanded down so that it has a nice rounded end. As you see here, the leading edge has to be rounded off significantly, but it has to be higher up, and also the trailing edge. Again, I don't know if you can see it. You see, so this is the lowest part of the profile. That has to be a little bit higher, and the trailing edge is also a little bit higher according to the design on the plan, right? So now it's going to be about a lot of sanding, the trailing edge, maybe even some carving, get it somehow rounded off, and then sanding down the ribs into shape, and also the trailing edge, get everything somehow aligned, and with that then one tailplane will be almost ready. Not completely, because then I also have to separate the elevator, but let me do the sanding, I'll show you that, and then I won't need to show you all the details. I'll do the other side before I do the elevator connectors. And finally, I've put together both elevators, well, the stabilizers. They're not completely perfect. I would like to have them completely equal, but I have the feeling this one is a little bit thicker. But I think it's okay. Like overall, it's okay. It was a lot of sanding especially for the leading edge, also carving with a knife, and then sanding around. You see, maybe these ribs are twisted, but surprisingly in the same way on both sides. So it's probably I'm making the same mistake at the same points. So as I say, not perfect but not bad. Now this is not over, because now the next step, what I have to do, I have to cut off here the behind the spar. I have to cut off both, and then I'm going to have to put in, probably I was thinking to put the hinges either in the middle, but that's probably going to be very complicated, or I'm going to put the hinges just at the top part of the spar, and then cut, let's see if I can indicate it here, maybe there, cut it somehow, like, sorry, dropped the phone there. Yeah, so what I was saying, so cut at maybe at 45 degrees or something, somewhere here on all the ribs, putting a sheet of maybe 1 millimeter to be able to close off the elevator, and then put the hinges then at the top part, so it'll bend up nicely and also have space to go down. And then also need to connect the two elevators, probably with a toothpick or maybe another skewer, to make sure that they move together. And I also have to put in some maybe some wood here, so that I can put there the piece of wood to connect the home, the control home. So it looks finished, but it's far from it. So showing a bit of the progress. So this is the stabilizer. I've cut off the rear part, because that's going to be the elevators. For one, this is the left one, I've already stuck a 1 millimeter sheet here at an angle, so this will actually come somehow like this, but I still have to somehow sand it down to the shape, so that's okay. And this, you see another status of it, is one that it's cut, and I've marked here with these lines where I intend to cut it, ideally all at the same angle, so that I can stick that 1 millimeter balsa also. So next step is going to be to do the same thing here, so cut, stick the 1 millimeter, and with both sides, and also sand it down so that it's somehow following the shape, and that it's holding a good shape, and then put it together. And finally, time to wrap up this chapter. So here we have the whole stabilizer with elevators. So far I've put them on with masking tape to see if the movement is okay. I think the movement is kind of fine. I don't know if you can see the other angle. So I think it's going to be okay. Up is as much as it wants, and down I think it should be enough. For the final hinges, I'm thinking of using cloth. I think in the olden days it was used. I'm not sure how to do that yet. And then for the final assembly, it's also going to be a little bit complicated, because I need to somehow put it in together, squeeze it through. So I probably won't be able to put the tissue on before I assemble it, but we'll see how I do it. Same also with the moving parts, because it's I have to somehow put it on and then assemble it. So we'll see, but those are problems down the road. For the moment, there we have it, one stabilizer with elevator, with connected elevators on each side for the Antonov. So I'll leave it here for the moment. Next chapter, I'm not sure what I'll be doing. I have to figure it out. And as always, thank you everybody for watching and for following along, and I'll see you next time.